Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat here, and today with Toonami's ratings from January 9th, 2021. Don't get your hopes up. Starting off the block, we have Dragon Ball Super at a 0.18, Attack on Titan at a 0.12, Sword Art Online, War of the Underworld Part 2 at a 0.11, The Fire Force at a 0.10, The Assassination Classroom at a 0.10, Jimmy of Death Beats finishing up its run at the block at a 0.09 and a 0.09, Naruto Shippuden at a 0.12, and The Demon Slayer ending at a 0.10. Overall, this was an absolutely atrocious week. And if you do not count marathons, this was actually the lowest rated week in the history of Toonami, regardless of its iteration. And this is going to be more of an autopsy than a video here, than analysis, you know. And first, I want to point out how far each one dropped here. Like first, you have Dragon Ball, we're dropping 0.04 of a point right there. And that's not good. This is the third time in the history of Toonami that Dragon Ball Super is rated a 0.18. That is tied for the lowest Dragon Ball Super has ever rated on the block. Then you have Attack on Titan. If you watched my video from last week, I predicted Attack on Titan would get a 0.19. I was horribly wrong. And yeah, I mean, it got a premiere slot and it just did not do well there. And more on that in a minute. Then you have War of the Underworld. I guess good retention here. It only dropped 1/100th, albeit it had a very low starting point at a 0.11, and that's 800 lower than it was last week. Admittedly, last week is also in a slightly better slot, so keep that in mind. Then after that, you have Fire Force at a 0.10. It goes down 900ths of a point, which I believe is, yes, it is the biggest drop any show had this week. So even though usually I call that the worst show of the week, the biggest drop, I'm actually not going to do that. More on that in a minute. Assassination Classroom, 800s too. So literally nearly every single one of these shows except for Dragon Ball Super has lost nearly half its viewer base in 1 week. And that's just ugly right there. And then you have Death Beats, which were at a 0.09, a 0.09. I think, yeah, it says here it was at 0.16 last week, so it dropped 700ths. And then you have Naruto relatively not doing that bad, only dropping 500s, albeit one can argue it's because it was pushed to 3 o'clock, which means that the DVR viewership from the next day also gets counted in, albeit that's probably a very small number. That might have pushed it up 1/100th extra. Again, that's just small speculation. And then Demon Slayer, I guess, doing all right. Only dropped 1/100th, albeit it's at 330 and it's running at a 0.10, so it's not exactly doing that well, you know? And yeah, and so a lot to unpack here, you know. First thing I want to point out is usually where Dragon Ball Super goes is where the rest of the block goes. And it dropped 400ths. However, the rest of the block dropped even more than that, which leans maybe some credence to a theory saying that this isn't necessarily Dragon Ball Super's fault. It's just a whole set of, and it's like a lot. I mean, it's a lot to take in here, but. And another competing theory is about the Capitol Hill protest, riot, insurrection, whatever you decide to call it. And people think, well, the news coverage from that just absolutely swamped over everything else that happened this week. And if you do look at Showbuzz Daily and look at what the top rated programs were, it's overwhelmingly news, like cable news, like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. So you think, oh, viewership got taken away from that. I don't believe so, actually, because at midnight, the midnight hour was rated only a 0.23 for cable news, which was like, well, that's high. Well, earlier in the day at like noon, it was like a 0.4 something. So it had been dropping. And if you look based on specific demographics, if you cut it down to the 12 to 34 demographic, the viewership for the highest news show, which was this week Attack on Titan, was at a 0.14 for the 12 to 34 demographic. For that specific hour CNN newsroom, which was the highest rated news program at midnight, that block only rated at a 0.08. So not that many, which if that section of the demographic isn't watching, then the rest probably isn't watching either. So basically, a way to sum that up is that CNN isn't taking viewers from the target demographic away from Toonami. So I think that discounts that theory. And another theory I had was pointing out how everything Attack on Titan onward dropped further than Dragon Ball Super did. So that leads to possibly to saying that this is Attack on Titan's fault. And, well, it's a new show, so you don't have any data points to compare with. And one good theory you can come up with is the fact that the sub only aired a few weeks ago, I believe. I believe it was like late December the sub first debuted. And a lot of people who have been very excited for this season of Attack on Titan just decided, I'm going to watch the sub. I'm going to watch the first episode of the sub. And they decided, well, I watched the first episode of sub like 2-3 weeks ago, so why should I go back and watch the dub? And a lot of people, I could see having that mentality about it, you know. And because of that, with the people tuning out, they just simply never tuned back into the block, which is why every show after it kind of dropped. And that's the theory I'm personally going with. It's the one I think that holds up to the most scrutiny. And another little tidbit I want to point out is how Naruto Shippuden was the third highest rated show of the block this week. The tiebreaker I use between that and Attack on Titan is total viewers, which isn't exactly the right picture because it includes from all age groups, not necessarily the target demographic, but I kind of just used interpolated from there. So it was Dragon Ball Super, Attack on Titan, and then Naruto Shippuden for the highest rated shows of the week. You know. And unsurprisingly, the lowest rated is Jimiseta Death Beats. A lot of people just could not wait for this show to get out. Unfortunately, it's gone. This is the last time we're ever going to see it on Toonami. And there's a season 3. Hopefully, they don't decide to throw that on Toonami either. So basically, here we have next week at that slot, the 2:30 slot, we're going to have the debut finally of SSSS Gridman coming to Toonami. Be interesting to see how that does. But overall, absolutely horrendous week for Toonami. And it's really not hyperbole. It's not hyperbole saying this is the worst week in the history of Toonami here. And and you start looking back at this block, at the actual schedule, and you could definitely argue it's better than it was for most of last year because you have something like Sword Art Online's on the block. Attack on Titan is airing a dub premiere on the block. And this is the thing, it's a true dub premiere, by the way. It's not like how we had with My Hero Academia last year, where it airs on Funimation now before it gets put on Toonami. And that My Hero Academia was still putting up near like 0.3. 0.3 as like the lead in, by the way. So it wasn't aided by Dragon Ball Super rerun at the point. Getting like 0.3s, to lead off the block. And Attack on Titan does not have that energy right now. I heard a lot of people throughout season 3, last season of Attack on Titan, start talking about maybe they weren't as into the shows they were at the beginning. And I could test the waters and say that the hype for Attack on Titan really kind of has been steadily decreasing. It went up because of the announcement for season 4 and season 4 coming out naturally, but it doesn't have the energy something like My Hero Academia has right now, or something like Demon Slayer has right now. I mean, nothing's gonna have Demon Slayer's energy right now. The Demon Slayer movie now is the most highest grossing film in Japanese history right now. It's an absolute freight train of an IP, and it's gonna be absolutely bonkers when season 2 comes out. I believe it's supposed to come out sometime in the summer 2021. So that is gonna be a really interesting cultural event to witness when that happens, especially in Japan. You know. And it's like I said, it's just if I had to point at one thing I think led to this week, it was Attack on Titan. Again, not exactly the hype that something like My Hero Academia or Demon Slayer has right now, and that just kind of carried on to the rest of the block. What do you guys think? What do you think led to these historic ratings this week? What shows do you think Toonami should put on the block? Leave your comments, leave your opinions down below. I love reading them. If you like this content, if you want more Toonami news content like this, please like, please comment, and subscribe. I am the Super Orange Cat, and that is all.